Dude, I was really impressed with like the final last scenes, especially the scene on the train. I thought was just executed so well. It was very like ratcheting up the tension with just kind of staring at this plastic bag, wondering if you could see an outline of what's in there or what's in there.
Yo, what's up YouTube? Jab by Movies here, and you are watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is James.
My name is Blaze.
And today we're checking out the 2022 horror film Watcher.
So, Watcher is directed by Chloe Okuno, and it is the story of a young American woman that moves with her husband to Bucharest and begins to suspect that a stranger who watches her from the apartment building across the street may be a local serial killer decapitating women. So this is a Shudder original film, along with I think the last film we watched, and a couple. I feel like Shudder has been kind of on a little bit on a roll this year, but this is the latest Shudder original. It's been available on VOD recently, and now it's kind of like about to get onto Shudder, so we're just preemptively getting ready for the Shudder release here. But James, what'd you think of this film?
So yeah, this movie, I remember hearing about it through Sundance, but what intrigued me overall was VHS 94 that we checked out last year. The short film within that movie, the Ratma storyline, was my favorite of the bunch, and when I looked up that director to see what other movies she had worked on, this was the only feature film that was going to be under her belt. I know she was also known for a popular short film that's on YouTube. I've still yet to watch it, but that movie's called Slut, and someday I want to get around to it. But yeah, so I wanted to make sure to keep this movie on my radar, and honestly, hearing Maika Monroe's in it too, like, it wasn't hard to follow. And I got lucky enough to see an early screening a couple weeks before it hit on demand. Thanks to Beyond Fest. They just hosted a screening at a theater here in Los Angeles. And so yeah, it was a really fun movie to see. Maika Monroe came out after the movie to do a Q&A, and that's a whole other experience. But with the movie itself, it might feel familiar to a lot of people, but there's a difference between being familiar and just being executed well. And that's what this movie gets right. It's just executed very well. Keeps you feeling freaked out despite it not being over the top horror-esque. It's definitely more in that thriller element. Of course, it's still a horror film, but yeah, I really liked this movie. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. With this film, is just very masterfully done in a way. It just seems like it's not. It reminds me honestly of Steven Spielberg's Duel. It's not a crazy story by any means, but it's just done very well, and it literally kickstarted Steven Spielberg's career. So I feel like this could do, or I hope it does, great things for Chloe Okuno, because this film was just very well directed. The cinematography did a really excellent job of making you feel almost claustrophobic, while at the same time having these kind of shots that were, big of the city, but still they felt like strangely claustrophobic. I'm thinking specifically when Maika Monroe's character is like walking through the city, almost becoming the Watcher in a sense, to follow the Watcher, which I like what this film did with playing essentially with kind of like who is the Watcher technically, in a way. Everything kind of like is more obvious towards the end, but I felt like throughout the film it kind of like has these like almost like subtle twists and turns where you're like wondering, like who should I really side with here, what's going on, who is the spider, but this film, I think you nailed it. It's definitely more along the lines of a thriller, but honestly, when we get to those finals, like the final last couple scenes, I think, dude, I was really impressed with like the final last scenes, especially the scene on the train. I thought was just executed so well. It was very like ratcheting up the tension with just kind of staring at this plastic bag, wondering if you could see an outline of what's in there or what's in there. And that I felt like that's the first time I almost remember seeing something like that, at least in a while. I can't remember off the top of my head anything where you're almost looking at this thing that's mundane, trying to figure out, you know, really what is it or what's inside it. Because I felt like it wasn't very obvious. It was very, very subtle. And I think that really speaks volumes about how this movie kind of approached the subject.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, almost like we kind of have to go into spoilers just because everything's revealed towards the end of the movie. So, you know, definitely go check it out for sure. But what I really liked about this, like, not to compare it to Scream, but just one thing that always impressed me about Wes Craven's writing in that movie was the fact that he tells you right away who the killer is, but just the whole movie you're second guessing yourself and just thinking, it's too obvious. There's no way. And here we get this again. It's very cleverly done, but like, just it makes it just even more uncomfortable. Just the fact that there's really only like 4 or 5 characters this entire movie, and the whole time I'm telling myself, there's no way he's the killer. It's all good. It's just like a bunch of miscommunications. He's being a creep. He is a weird dude, but he's not the spider and stuff. And then just plain and simple, though, the clues are always there to begin with, whether it's the head in the bag, like in the scene you're talking about on the subway, or just like, you know, the first initial thoughts where she would see him staring at her, following her around the grocery store. Like, all the clues are there, but just it's so well directed to just like push us in the other direction, like, nah, it's too obvious and stuff. And like, it really puts us in the shoes of Maika Monroe. And like, one thing I really wanted to praise also was the fact that I forgot what country it is they moved to, but just the language that they're speaking throughout the entire movie, just like, I really like that there's very rarely any subtitles throughout the movie. It really just put us in Maika Monroe's shoes of just like not knowing what anyone is saying or conversing about, and just like feeling uncomfortable and just feeling lost and absolutely alone. Like, yeah, she has her husband, but then at times, like, no, she doesn't and stuff. And it captures like that very well, like giving the audience and putting them inside her shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That was something I really liked, because I even turned the subtitles on for this and then was like confused, like, wait, what? It's not subtitled. And then I'm like, oh, it does a really good job of making you feel that kind of just unrest of like not really knowing what anyone's saying. You're getting kind of a translation, but it's sometimes not even the best from certain people in the film. Is it honest, you know? Especially, I think it's such a big theme in the beginning of the film, literally the first scene of the film. That's essentially the theme, is like, you're kind of not going to be able to understand anyone when the cab driver is almost like talking shit about her, and we're only getting it secondhand from her husband. So I felt like that was just such a good like opening scene. A lot of this, I think the writing is really done well here by Zach Ford. It was this originally I think was a Blacklist screenplay, but I think it took a long time for it to actually end up getting produced. And I know that they did, you know, adjust the script and made changes to it. So I thought this film was just honestly really well done. I think Chloe Okuno is now on my map. I'm definitely gonna be watching anything else that she's directed.
Yeah, and honestly, I forget I think she's directing, her next feature is going to be called The Dating Game, and I don't know the synopsis off the top of my head, but it sounds like such a fun synopsis. So yeah, absolutely going to keep her in mind. It makes me want to revisit just her segment of VHS 94 just because of how fun that one was. And actually, I remember that one being somewhat the creepiest of the bunch too, despite it also having a comedic effector in certain moments too. But yeah, just really impressed with this feature film, and also nice return for Maika Monroe. I've really missed her as an actress. I know she's still been around, but just we lost her with like an A24 movie with Timothy Chalamet that I just wasn't interested in. I know she did Independence Day, but just like, I'm happy to see her doing these like indie horror films that just like where like just like she's got 3 great movies under her belt. Like, well, maybe she's not making the most money off of it. Like, I see this being like, you know, considered doing very well, where like just horror enthusiasts over the next few years will recommend this movie. Then she's got The Guest and It Follows that are always going to be remembered as like some of the best horror films of the modern 2010s and stuff. So it's just like nice to see a return from her.
Yeah, definitely. She, I feel like, is like that modern kind of indie scream queen, where she always plays the character different than what we kind of remember as the scream queen in a way. I don't even think she screams in this movie, honestly, but I think the role still is going to be called that, you know, like she's kind of championing these maybe lesser known films and really putting her stamp on it. So you have to appreciate that, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. So, you know, I feel like we've been telling you guys to go check it out, and like, here's our final thoughts on it. Just go check it out. Best way to help support the show is by watching the movie itself. You can check it out through our Amazon affiliate link in our description box below. It'll also be on Shudder in pretty soon. Don't have an exact date, but expect it pretty soon too.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And if you haven't had enough of us here on YouTube, catch all our social media links down below with Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Anyways, guys, that'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.